Hi guys, it is Kate here to talk to you about DNF'ing, and in case you aren't aware of the abbreviation DNF, it simply means do not finish, and it's very popular in the booktube world. Anyhow, I before had a philosophy that with classics, I would never DNF them because it's a classic, it's well worth my time. I should really just take my time with it if I'm not enjoying it, and classics I would say are the most worth your time out of any book. And that was kind of my philosophy before this past month. I talked about in my September wrap-up how September was a really rough month for me, and it was just dragging and dragging and dragging. So I'm going to tell you about some books that I DNF'd and why I DNF'd them, and then I want to talk about some books that I didn't DNF and some that I did, and those being long ago in the past and how I'm feeling about those now. The first one that I DNF'd was East of Eden by John Steinbeck. I really feel that I gave this book a good shot. And I remembered Amanda Center, which this is now, I think, her favorite book of all time. So it's kind of sad how it was supposed to be a buddy read with us, and then it ended up being one that I just struggled with, and then DNF'd. And I got far in this. I got, I think, 400 pages. Oh, wait. I got 300 pages into this, and it's 300 out of basically 600. So I got halfway through this, and I was not feeling this, and I kept waiting to really enjoy this. And so then when Amanda said she really enjoyed it halfway, I pushed myself to halfway, and then I got past halfway, and I kept not enjoying it, and I read all of that on my phone. Like, I couldn't even bring myself to sit down with this physical copy of it. And it was just extremely frustrating because I wanted to be in the East of Eden Club because Stephanie over at That's What She Read, she's one of my really good booktube friends, and this is one of her favorite books. And Amanda loved it, and Sarai over at Sarai Talks Books, last year she really made me want to read it when she did a review of it, and she just talked about how much she loved it. And I just wanted to join that club, when book lovers hear other book lovers talk about the books that they love. It's something that you want to participate in. It's something that you want to take place in. But I think sometimes you forget when you're watching these reviews that books are very unique to each reader, and each reader is going to have their own specific experience of it. And I think that this novel just did not speak to me. And there are certain styles of books that everyone loves. And I guess I thought kind of every iconic American author I was going to love, because when I read Willa Cather, I loved her. When I read William Faulkner for the first time, I loved him. And so I thought, those are iconic American authors. Here's another iconic American author. I can love him too. But that ended up not being the case. So I just decided to cut my losses. I was feeling so reading slumpy in September. And so I just put this down. And I don't think I regret it. I wish I could have loved it. I wanted to love it, but when you have a book that is making you just not read, because I would just avoid reading altogether because I was feeling guilty about being so far behind on this. But I ended up DNFing it, and I felt freer after doing that. The next one that I DNF'd was The Count of Monte Cristo. This is by Alexander Dumas, and he also wrote The Three Musketeers and The Man in the Iron Mask, which might be in the Three Musketeers series. I can't remember. Anyhow, I was reading this with Ange from Beyond the Pages, and the further I got into this, the more I realized that this just did not seem like my kind of book. I hate using these general terms because I know everyone is their own unique special person, but to me, just as I was reading this and Ange agreed with me, I was like, this is a boy book. This is just totally about action and adventure, and it didn't really drag, and so that's what killed me, that I didn't want to continue reading it. There was no dragging. I couldn't complain about it being slow or anything like that, but it just was not emotionally engaging. The character of Dantes, I did not feel compelled by him. And in fact, I almost didn't like him because this is a revenge tale to me. And so I read about 300 pages, around 300 pages, and So, you know, if you get 300 pages through maybe a 500 book or a 500 page book or a 450 page book, you kind of think, okay, I can, like, you know, really push through towards the end. I'm at home stretch. But when you get only 300 pages through a 1500 page book that you've just been really struggling through, it's very, very daunting. And so it ended up being nice that Ange wasn't really enjoying it either, because then it made me feel less guilty for DNFing it. And so I've come out of this saying, you know, there are some books that just aren't for you. And this is one that I really enjoy the movie of. But the movie I can be done with in a little over 2 hours. The book, I don't know how many hours this would take me. Anyhow, so I ended up DNFing this. So I think maybe my philosophy on not DNFing classics has changed, because being a part of the BookTube community now, I am reading so much more than I ever would. And so if it means me, if me finishing this means me not reading anything else for 2 months, then I just think that's not worth it. And I think that means you're not really enjoying the book. Because it just made me not want to pick up anything else. Whereas some classics that I need to go through a little slower, I'm still fine picking other things up. The next one, that this was the hardest for me to say I wanted to DNF. But it was Lark Rise to Candleford by Flora Thompson. And this was definitely a point of pride for me, because I love the show Lark Rise to Candleford so very much. And I kept really taking my time, but then I kept realizing, like, I started this in the month of March. And here we are. It is September when I DNF'd this, and I am still not enjoying this. And I got 362 pages through, and it's out of 550 pages. So I had less than 200 pages left. But I just was not motivated. This writing is so dense. I think for a class, maybe if we had done maybe a college course and we had done a chapter a class or something like that, it really is a beautiful picture of Victorian life. And the writing is definitely good, but it was just so dense and I was so tired of it. And I can honestly say I'm happy enjoying this TV series and not reading this. And I never thought I would say that, but it's just the fact of the matter. Then another one that is a DNF for now, but I actually might pick this one up. So I think maybe with some books, you can save your love of this book and know that right now is not the right time, and I want to try it another time. And that is For Whom the Bell Tolls by Ernest Hemingway. I started this as a buddy read with Stephanie over at That's What She Read. And I don't know, he might be too masculine of an author for me. This is very much action-oriented, but I think you might get some depth with the characters, and I wasn't sure at this point, because it was only like 30 pages in that I DNF'd it. Yeah, so I don't know. This is one I wasn't connecting with yet. And I was feeling impatient in September because I was having so many reads that I wasn't liking. So I guess I thought, in order to preserve what desire I have left to read, I think I'll just DNF this and cut my losses. But I think I'm not getting rid of this book, and I think maybe I'll come back to it at another time when I feel more up for trying out a Hemingway. So then 2 books that I wanted to talk to you about. I had this philosophy of, well, I never DNF a classic because it's a classic. But I think I'm changing my opinion of that. I definitely think classics are worth your time, but I think there are some classics that are not for you. And it's now that I think about it, it's kind of silly that I could think, well, I love classics and that every single classic will be something that I enjoy. And so I think sometimes if you have that philosophy, then you're just going to go through a book that you hate, and then at the end you talk about how much you hate it. But then I'm also conflicted, because then sometimes you go through a classic and it was such hard work, but then you come out and you're so happy that you read it. So the first book I want to talk about is Villette by Charlotte Bronte. And this actually, for the people on BookTube who have read it, it's a very well-loved book. And it's just, there's so much positivity about it on BookTube. And I hated this book. I haven't talked about it yet on my channel, but I'm telling you guys, I hated this book from start to finish. And there were so many times that I thought about DNFing it. I think there's maybe 600 pages in it, and I hated it from start to finish. It bored me. I couldn't stand it. The main character of Lucy Snow I thought was such a bore, like so boring. Just she bored me to tears. She was like dry toast, no personality whatsoever. And so, so many of the people that love it, they love it so much more than Jane Eyre. But to me, oh, Jane is so much more interesting of a character than Lucy. And I hated it. And I took a break from it for several months, and I thought if I came back to it then I would like it. And so the character of Lucy Snow bored me. There is tons of drama with like Protestant versus Catholic in this. And like, I am a churchgoer. I go to church every week, and this bored me to tears. Like, I could care less about all the drama of Protestant versus Catholic. And I'm like, okay, if this bores me, like, I don't understand. I know it was like a very relevant issue at the time, and that's continues to be kind of a tense thing, Protestants and Catholics, but bored me to tears. And in addition to that, the romance that was in there, I didn't like. There's a sort of mystery, I don't want to say anymore, but sort of mystery that happens in it, and I could not stand it. And the writing to me was just not nearly, like the descriptions of nature were not nearly as beautiful as they were in Jane Eyre. Jane Eyre is just like so much more suited to me. Jane Eyre is still like my favorite Bronte book. I love Jane Eyre. So I was highly disappointed by that. And now as I'm talking about it, you can tell like how annoyed I am at that book. But I was like, well, it's a classic. I should finish it. Like I say, I love the Brontes. I need to finish it. So then though, I think back to when I read Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. I wanted to have it read before the big musical with Eddie Redmayne and Amanda Seyfried, Hugh Jackman, Russell Crowe, all those big names. It was coming out at Christmas. And so in August, I think it was August, I decided I wanted to read it. And so I downloaded like the Kindle copy so I could take that on the go, and I had the book, and that book was a grind, let me tell you. Like, sometimes I wanted to cry because it bored me so much. There is 100 pages of it dedicated to the sewer systems in Paris. 100 pages, people. It's very long, okay? It's very long. And I think it was, it was written to also be educational to people, so you can be educated about what the sewer systems were like and consider yourself, a well-rounded individual. But now, several years out, I'm really, really happy that I read it, because it was one of the most emotionally captivating books that I ever read. And it was such a challenge, and I felt that, that really like I had to work hard and concentrate as I was reading it. But afterwards, it is now, one of my favorite books, and I think one of the most compelling books out there. So I just don't know what to make of it. And I think I'm just going to have to kind of judge with each book that I read. So I wish I hadn't finished Villette, because I'm obviously very annoyed at the whole story. It wasn't for me. I did not like it. But then I come out of Les Mis, which was really hard work, I thought, concentration-wise, and I'm really happy that I read it. It's one of my favorite books. I think Jean Valjean is one of the best characters in all of literature. So these are kind of my rambly thoughts on DNF'ing, and please let me know your experiences with DNF'ing, kind of if you have a rule of thumb for it, if you kind of push through classics as a rule, and I'd really love to dialogue with all of you. And yeah, let me know what you think, and I look forward to talking with all of you interesting people about it. So anyhow, I hope you have a lovely day, and I hope this wasn't too rambly for you, and I will see you guys for another video soon.